All right. Well, it's after hours.
Welcome.
So today we were going to talk about sponsorship because I made a video that then we kind of talked about it more, so I pulled it back down, and we thought we would get together and chat about this as my perspective as someone who is sponsored, has been for a while on multiple different levels, and then yours as a person who sponsors people and is someone who needs to see that kind of return on investment from it. So one of the things that I think is totally misunderstood about paddling in general is that all sponsorship is not the same. I think on some level everyone knows that, but no one really acknowledges that, right? So, there's everything from like a pro deal. So, like, I was given by a apparel company a bunch of stickers, a couple shirts, and it was out of the blue, and I was kind of just like, "What do you want from me?" It was like one of the first accolades I ever got, right? And the response was, we're not really giving you much. We're not expecting a ton in return. And I feel like that's the basic balance for most pro deals, right? And then you have like ambassadors, which like I am for you guys, I am for other brands. There's a with more responsibility, more is expected back because you guys are actually investing in that level. And then there's the tippity top fractions of a percent, guys who actually get paid money.
They exist still.
Sort of.
Sort
Highly on the sort of. I want to talk to one of our friends who has been around the block a lot, Matt Hamilton, and kind of talk about like his history as a sponsor boater because he was there for the Apex and then as it declined out, and I think hopefully we're getting together in a couple weeks
Can't
to do
wait.
that.
Can't wait to hear from Matt. That'll be great.
But so as someone who hands out sponsorships, really it's a form of marketing, right? Like it's
Yeah, I mean, let's let's look at it. Pro deals, athletes, ambassadors, whatever you want to call an athlete ambassador, and let's go even further back beyond that to you brought up the term that I look at return on investment.
mm-hmm.
And I just want to kind of throw this out there, clarify, excuse me, that it's not just a paddle sports shop, in my case, a retailer that's looking for return on investment. It's not just a vendor or a manufacturer. Let's take Dagger, Piranha, for instance, that's looking for return on investment. The consumer, too,
Mm-hmm.
is looking for a good return on investment. If they buy this product, they get a good product that they're going to use. It's going to be useful. It's going to better their experience or time here on Earth. Whether it's a sport, whether it's daily activity, etc. So, I think sometimes folks hear return on investment and they think, oh, that's just business. They're trying to make money. Well, we've all got to make money. We've all got to put food on our tables. And in being a consumer, buying something, hopefully we're buying something that we're going to get good return on investment. So, yes, when it comes to whether it's a pro deal or a pro form, an employee purchase form, whatever you want to call it, whether it's an athlete, an ambassador, those are different ways that we try to market our product and hopefully make a better return on investment. Okay. In the case of a pro form or an EP, really good example of how those are used and useful in the industry is John Smith at Mountain Bike Shop. He gets an EP. He rides, let's say, a giant bike.
Mm-hmm.
And his customers come in and he can say with firsthand experience, I really like this bike. He sounds qualified and he talks to a person and matches that person up with the right product. So pro cards can be very, very useful.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, they can damage our industry.
Right, and that comes down to place and volume, right? Like if there's a million of them,
if you're handing it out at an event
to hundreds of people,
to consumers, and handing that out, well, let's look at the circle. We've got a manufacturer, we've got a retailer, we've got a consumer, and we also have an athlete or ambassador, right? It's all part of this circle. And so if you're bypassing the retailer and now you're giving John Smith, 50% off a product or 30% off a product, and they're buying it directly from the manufacturer, well, you know what? That manufacturer can consider going direct and consider bypassing that retailer. But in certain items, we've seen that doesn't work so well.
I mean, I don't think we're calling anyone out to say that Liquid Logic took that route, slashed a third of their employees in a year because it just didn't work. I think at the end of the day, I mean, granted, we're saying this from a standpoint of guys representing a retail shop, but there's a reason that people go to Best Buy to try stuff out before they buy it off of Amazon.
There is.
Right?
There's a reason we go to a car dealership to test drive a car before we just buy a car off the internet.
Right. And that's definitely a huge thing. Retailers getting cut out is horrible for, I think the industry. And the way that I look at that is when a specific brand approaches me about some sort of partnership, I'm always honored. I'm always flattered. It's a privilege. But what I always stress is, look, I am primarily an ambassador, an event organizer, a race organizer, and my interest is really in growing the community. And I will bring you return on investment in the form of making the pie bigger, not from helping you carve out a bigger slice from the same pie or a shrinking pie. I mean, look at like hunting or fishing. If they're shrinking right now because they can't bring in more people. So
hunting and fishing, I'm sure certain aspects, but in the paddling industry, hunting and fishing is growing.
Right, it's a bit of a nuance.
Yeah, that's a different story.
But I think that's kind of the important thing that everyone also tends to forget. I see a lot of people who seem to think that the sponsorship is just some form of influencer marketing on social media, and that they're paying their dues with a hashtag or creating content for the sake of creating content and just bombing Instagram and Facebook.
If you've got thousands of followers, and I'm talking like the influencers, from what I've researched and seen, the influencers who have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers, those guys might have some sort of ripple effect. But you've got a couple hundred, or you've got 1,000 people that are following you, but they're not qualified customers. You bought them, let's say. They're not qualified consumers that might want to purchase a product. Well, then what's the point, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I would agree with that statement.
I mean, let's look at Pat Keller. Pat Keller single-handedly, Liquid Logic puts out the BRAP. The BRAP basically came out before there was a market for the BRAP. So they social media influenced and Target created, like, let's bring back downriver freestyle again. So that's something where, like, if you're an absolute elite athlete he's like in his mid-30s now, early 30s, he's been a sponsored athlete since he was like 16. He has the kind of clout to do that. Right? On the flip side, but in the real world, like, he's a full-time employee at Liquid Logic and
Big Adventures,
right, and all that stuff. So it's not that it's just his Instagram account that's why he's sponsored, right? Like, he's giving a lot back to that company, and they're giving a bunch in return.
Oh, most definitely. So to circle back around.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yes, we've seen it work. The key from what I see when it comes to marketing, and again, I think we mentioned that these are all kind of forms of marketing, influencing, whatever you want to call it, that comes down to marketing. The most healthy example of this is what I call the complete circle. When athletes are working with retailers as well as vendors. When vendors are working with retailers as well as athletes, as well as consumers. When we're all a part of that big picture, it works. I mean, let's take you for instance. I mean, that when we had the conversation years ago about, having you more involved with taking the demo boats to the river, being a friend of mine, but also a friend of the businesses. I mean, that whole model has just grown tremendously, and our Whitewater numbers show for it.
They do.
Big time.
Points. Yeah, I mean, literally, that was a point in time where I think the way that came about was it was February, and you said to me, we might not be carrying Whitewater next year unless something dramatic changes.
It was February, and hey, I'm a dad, and I'm not spending the time on the river that I'd like. And Whitewater as a industry is very tough. If you look at the numbers, it doesn't make much sense. It does not make much sense compared to fishing, compared to paddleboarding. Now that's a topic for another time, where the state of where the industry is, state of the union address.
We'll have that conversation.
But again, Whitewater is just not there. Bailey, you're killing me, dude.
Bailey, you are destroying my life.
The old man coming into the shot. He'll go do his thing. At any rate, so sponsorship works, it doesn't work. Marketing, I think all of us, whether you're a retailer, a vendor, an athlete, you need to understand, and just a regular paddler. I'm in it for the passion. I might be a dirtbag. And that, more power to you. If that's what you want to do, you want to get out there, you want to paddle rivers, you're not going to have a 9 to 5, you're just going to live for paddling rivers. Again, let's take Fred Becky. There are plenty of Fred Beckys in this world, and that's fine if that's the path they so choose.
Right. I mean, one thing I would say is that...
But we can't all be Fred Beckys.
I certainly never asked to be sponsored. That was totally your idea.
Yeah.
And I think that's basically the biggest thing that I would like to see change. Like, I would like to see more attention go to guys out there who no one knows about, who are just the event organizers, the unsung heroes, the people who are in it for the right reasons. I see a lot of people, like back in the day, it was like, who can put out a YouTube video on, and then it was who can do a Facebook post. Like, I understand why the criteria for getting attention as an athlete has changed, but I think that the biggest thing is who's putting butts in boats and boats in the water.
Exactly. I mean, it was easy for me because you were in this market. I had firsthand experience working with you. I saw an individual who could not only connect to us and was passionate about the sport, but also could connect to the consumer and could also connect then to some of the reps that we work with and the vendors that we work with. So it just makes perfect sense. It was easy because you were here. Well, but when it comes to, guys, say in Greenville, South Carolina, looking for somebody in California, that does create a more difficult dynamic. However, I think that there are some easy ways we could come up with to ensure that those individuals that they're reaching out to and then charging with this venture are the right individuals for that position.
I think it must be incredibly tough. Because we've gotten those emails like, hey, we have a gap in the lineup on our team. Like, is there somebody? And we've said no, because there just wasn't anybody. Bailey. And by the same token, yeah, I totally understand. I mean, we're friends with national level managers who live locally to our area. I couldn't imagine being in their shoes, but maybe retailers working with them is a good way of doing it, but how do you know that it isn't just the kid next to him behind the counter that's getting that discount, and you're not just feeding it right back into someone who isn't really helping push anything,
just milking it for what it's worth.
Right. But what I do know is that if you're putting it into people who are in it for the passion and in it for making the community a better place, that it'll come back one way or another. So maybe the answer is less individual sponsorships and more community event-based sponsorships. Because when I was just starting out, I had the shop behind me, but that was it. So like I reached out to Hometown Throwdown, and it was a horrible experience. I couldn't do anything without becoming like some statewide ambassador, and I had to provide monthly reports in, and
That's a shame.
all that I was really offered for all of that was stuff that like we get left at the counter all the time as free promo stuff. It was nothing that I couldn't go, into the office and grab, and it was hours of unnecessary work.
He was a perfectly good ambassador for this market, and you had to jump through too many hoops. It made it too difficult for you.
Yeah, I just stopped responding to those emails pretty much instantly. And then I wound up hearing from other places that there are states where there's one guy who just keeps them happy, and there's one guy who actually runs the events because it's so overwhelming.
Well, hopefully this all gives everyone, whether you're a passionate consumer, passionate user of outdoor product and paddle sports gear, whether you're in the industry manufacturing these products, and whether you're in the position of being an athlete or an ambassador, or somebody in a shop who's privileged enough or in a position where you can take advantage of these pro forms, employee purchases, whatever we want to call them.
Yeah.
Hopefully this gives you a bigger picture. Having worked for Yakima, Kayaks, Yakima Products Incorporated, having worked for Mountain Man as a retailer, having been in this industry for almost going on 2 decades, I think that for the Whitewater segment, this is definitely an area we can improve upon. And also to kind of elaborate and add to that, I think for the fishing segment, this is an area we need to see more of. And I think those retailers out there, if you're a retail shop, I think that's an area at Mountain Man we're going to look more into, is expanding our ambassador program. We need fishermen out there who are using our products, giving us good feedback on how they work, at the same time turning folks on to who we are at the business.
I think there's also a constant level of curation that is needed. Like, you can't just stable those horses and keep them forever. There are a lot of guys out there in the Whitewater realm who are getting stuff that just, I don't know how they're still even on the team. They've just been there long enough, I guess.
It's a great point.
And then that's going to happen on fishing.
On that note, let's no names are going to be named here, but in our market, there were some pro athletes, team athletes to one of our vendors, and I'm not going to name any names. They were given a boat. It wasn't the right size. That boat went on up for sale on Craigslist or in the area, in the market.
Something which had just dropped. We didn't even have in the shop yet.
Yeah. Was brand new, and was we did have it in the shop, and that's the thing that hurt.
But like by a month or something.
That here Mountain Man is trying to sell and get behind this brand new product and move our units. Meanwhile, we're being undercut by somebody who's supposed to be helping us out. Somebody who's a team athlete should be, and now and in the past has been very involved with our business, but it didn't. Things didn't click at the time. They're trying to just unload something that they don't need. But here, this retailer is saying, "Oh, this kind of hurts because if we have this happen here, how many other times has this happened in our market, and how many sales has that prevented?"
EJ had a really interesting commentary on this about how, like, in order for everyone to win on a certain product, it has to be like the best in its class the first year, and you have to work hard to keep that value up. What happened there was, or any time that a pro is turning over gear that's essentially brand new for, manufacturing cost price, is you instantly devalue the product. So there's a manufacturer out there who this week just went through and slashed all their prices list for stuff that retailers still have on the rack, and it's costing people thousands of dollars, and it's something that the retailers just have to. It's
saving the consumer, and that is, having been in the business, that happens not often, but that happens, and it sucks. It hurts. I wish, and I think that there are ways that we could minimize that or execute that plan better. You've been talking to some staff at the shop.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that's another part of it is in long and short is, and you nailed it with, it devalues the product. Anybody can sell something if they're undercutting everybody else.
Right.
But now the value of the product went from here to here. And hey, again, we all want deals, but looking at the big picture, you get what you pay for.
Right.
And sometimes to have it's not all about getting the best deal. The whitewater industry couldn't go on selling whitewater boats for $500. Well, it would disappear. No manufacturers can maintain business selling boats for $500.
My job as a sponsored paddler is to add value to that product, be it intrinsic, be it monetary, and I've had conversations with some of my sponsors saying, like, I have a pile of used gear that I haven't sold because I don't want to cut a retailer out. I don't want to decrease the value of your stuff, and I don't really know what to do with it right now. Because that's basically my concern. And if, Mountain Man's a large shop in the industry, there are plenty of shops that can only support one whitewater brand or two whitewater brands, and if that's getting devalued, it suddenly makes it really easy to just be like, well, I'm not taking up that rack space with something that's instantly 10% less than what I thought I was going to get out of it.
I've thought long and hard about this, and it kind of, what you're getting at kind of broaches these shower thoughts, let's call them, that I have. But first, let's say, here's to value added. So to all you who add value to these products, that's awesome. That's the right direction. It's the right thing to do. Let's take, and this may be getting off subject here, but not so much. Let's look at whitewater, for instance, or any product, but let's look at whitewater specifically. And we could have, in every state, in every city, we could have a whitewater dealer. Now, we know some of those whitewater dealers aren't going to have the market that's going to have demand for them.
Not going to do too well in Kansas.
Not going to do too well in Kansas. Not going to do too well in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of other markets. But we could do that, and we could have dealers everywhere. And each of those, and this gets back to the pie, each of those could sell, let's say, 5 whitewater boats a year. And we sell. Or we can have a market or a country where we have specific regions and zones where whitewater is in more demand, and we have more specialized shops. And shops that aren't just buying from an internet, aren't just buying from a staff member who's never paddled it. And that's really kind of where we've tried to aim our businesses. Not only are we passionate about it, but we've paddled it, we're on the water, you can demo it. What more could you ask for? So I guess I bring up that point.
So are you saying that, like, sponsors paddlers help kind of like round it out because not everyone's into everything? Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. You can be and that's it. We can't have sponsored paddlers in every market. We can't have whitewater shops in every market. But when we work together, and you're in Syracuse and we're here in Old Forge and Saratoga Springs, we can work together and we can funnel our sources and we can make something beautiful.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I know when the shop has brought people in before, it's been a real question about, like, okay, well, what do they do? Because like, are we too heavy on taurine, or do we know someone who knows anything about fishing? Because all of a sudden fishing's hot, and it sucked all the oxygen that SUP had before, and I think that there's a lot for the number of people who sell boats out there. They're just, I mean, Whitewater's a niche, or whatever it is. Greenland paddles are a niche, and if you can physically go meet someone and talk to someone who knows about it, it's huge.
Who's used the product, you can use the product. We're getting way off subject.
We're gone.
But again, that all comes back around to that good circle, sponsorship, finding the right shop.
That's the value that you're adding, and that's what it comes down to. Is it's people that can walk up and physically talk to someone and try the stuff. I mean, that's what sponsorship's about. It's not about just you getting something. I mean, what I always stress is that, like, you're your best sponsor. You have a real job. I have a real job. Both of us have access into the industry, but at the end of the day, I'm the one who pays. Kayaking isn't paying for my rent. Kayaking isn't paying for any of that. I think that people need to realize that with great opportunities in the industry comes great responsibility in terms of sponsorship.
It does. The heyday of, and I look again, circle back around to Matt Hamilton. I look forward to hearing from Matt and what he has to say. I look forward to hearing some stories, actually. But yeah, no, there's no handouts anymore, and you've got to work. You've got to complete that circle. It's not just about being cool, looking cool. It's about connecting with people. At the same time, showing the world via social media, via websites, etc., what you're doing and what this product can do for them, how this product might pertain to their needs. But that all takes, like you said, that all takes work.
That's right. I mean, just to wrap it up, I mean, anecdotally, no one calls the shop or messages because I posted a random video, or maybe even from this video, right? Like, we're doing this for fun. But this last week, someone messaged me on a personal level about a helmet because theirs broke, and they asked me a personal question, and I was floored and super happy that things are working when I walked in this weekend and there was a helmet sold with his name on it. Like, that's how it should work. That's that mystery of ROI, and that's how it should work in the best of cases. So on behalf of us and Bailey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.